welcome back to the Good Crack Miniatures channel. Thank you for joining us again. If this is your first time here, make sure you go back and watch that welcome video that's pinned at the top of the page. It's going to give you a really good idea, well, a generally good idea of what exactly this channel is about and what I'm trying to accomplish. There are a couple numbers in there that are wrong. For instance, 4,500? No, wrong. 3,218. That'll make more sense if you go back and watch it if you haven't already. Anyways, what are we talking about today? Well, we're talking kind of about priming. I've been painting miniatures for, what, 8-ish years now? Six years now. 6-ish years now, on and off. Life gets in the way, all those kinds of things. If you've ever had a hobby, I'm sure you understand. I know plenty of people in the miniature painting community understand. We talk about it on the forums all the time. But up until this point, I have done hand priming, or rattle can priming. And while those things are good and they kind of work in their own way, they are difficult. One, hand priming just takes a lot amount of time. You've got to get the right kind of thickness, I guess, viscosity, kind of the right mixture for getting a nice even coat on a miniature, no brush strokes, that kind of stuff. And depending on what paint you're using and the miniature, how it was prepped, all those sorts of things, you have to, it gets wonky, right? One miniature, if it's injected with a certain type of resin, might be more hydrophobic, and then you can't use as much paint to thin, and then things get, it's a whole mess. Rattle cans have a somewhat similar problem in that depending on the conditions you're doing things in, and even just the batches that they're made in, those sorts of things, they can be hit or miss. If you mess it up, you get, powderiness or even stickiness and all those sorts of things. And so I think it's time that I finally bite the bullet and I move into the creme de la creme of priming, also as a step forward into stepping up my game of painting, particularly before we get to some of the larger sculpts that we have on the slate for later in the year in this project. I've got some big boys. I've got Conjure the World Eater. We've got a bunch of dragons from Dungeons and Lasers, things that will really benefit from using an airbrush. I've wanted to get into airbrushing for a while, but just never really jumped in. We're finally doing it, and you are going to get to watch me learn. It'll be great, I promise. Mistakes will be made. You'll get to learn with me. I'm hoping that, it'll really kind of ease things up for me, and considering the amount of things that need primer on them in this project that I've taken on, I really want to be able to speed that up. The airbrush should let me do that. It should really make it much more accessible for me to get nice, standard, even coats of primer on things real fast in a flash. We're going to try it out first on the Woodhaven terrain pieces. Now, I've done my research. I just want to say that, okay? As I was looking into things, something caught my eye, and I thought, what the heck? We're just taking a slam dunk home run at this. So why not go for it? Why not experiment? If this is a whole experimentation process, it's going to be clunky anyways. Just take a chance. I say this because I know that watching this at some point there will be at least one purist. And the thing I'm about to do could be seen as sacrilege. Because while I will, I promise, eventually get a wonderful master or some other wonderful name brand airbrush setup, I saw it and it intrigued me, and I thought, yeah, let's start there. I did look up some reviews on this particular one, and it's not bad. It was, several people said that for beginners, if you're just using it for priming, great, that's all we're doing right now. I don't expect to ever use it in fine detail airbrushing, but please don't at me. I know what I've done. because we're going to use this. This, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, maybe you don't know, this is an airbrush. This is a tiny little battery-powered compressor. Yeah. Most people, professionals, which I'm not, we've established this through many videos, would have a large tank canister with an actual compressor on it that, that would be how they do it. And that's the way to do it. And we'll do that eventually. But we're going to start here because why not? Anyways, let's go see how it turns out as I do some airbrushing for the first time with this tiny little setup. I think it's going to be fine, guys. It's going to be fine. It's not going to be great. I know that. But it will be fine. Try not to get too angry about this, okay? I promise. I promise I'll make you guys proud one day. This is a stage. It's a phase. It's a phase. I'll get through it. All right, welcome back down to the basement. Though this may be your first time here, it's hard to tell. Anyways, we're gonna get to my first time using an airbrush. So, brought the Sacrilege airbrush down. We're gonna work on 2 models. This is what we're gonna start out on. We're just doing a nice prime here. For the first go, this is Draculus the Cunning from Dungeons and Lasers, Archon Studio. And then we're also going to be looking at the Fire Giant from Reaper Bones 5 Kickstarter, which I believe is also available through their website now. Both of those are actually, I believe, also available on the relevant websites. So if you think they're cool, go check them out. Not sponsored at all, whatsoever. Got some Vallejo airbrush primer, and to start off with, some lovely trash cardboard, just to get a gander at the controls, how the paint comes out, where my delineation between thick or thin lines, and that kind of stuff goes. So, that is pretty much everything, except it's PPE time. Let's throw that on and let's get started seeing how this goes for your girl here. Beautiful. All right. going to be open. Hey, give me a second here. Alright, so, in case you didn't hear me, definitely I'm going to need to get a little airbrush holster guy, because now I just have to hold this. It's still full of paint pretty much, but not bad. Worked pretty much the way I was expecting things to work. We had a bit of sputtering. I assume that is likely as much a me and technique newbie problem. I don't know why I was still holding that up there. As it is a this guy problem. So I'll do some research and stuff on that. But things went well. I'm confident enough to say that we can get a priming with this. So let's get these two models primed and see how things go. See how they react with my paint. Might do a little bit of quick research first, see if I can solve some of that sputtering problem. I've seen now the collection between, so yeah, maybe a nice little rag or something. We'll see. I'll figure it out. I will consult the interwebs and the knowledge that many of you have put out there. And we'll get these primed. after the first day of airbrushing for me. A lot of things learned, great experience, went better than one could have hoped for. I was anticipating complete disaster on most options that were available. That said, it went spectacularly well. I think it went fairly smoothly for a first go and for the setup that I have, and I am ecstatic. Even though things weren't perfect, there's clearly a lot for me to learn and a lot of improvement to be had just in general. What we ended up with is way better and more consistent and pretty much exactly what I was looking to improve upon from moving on from just hand painting on primer and rattle cans. So how'd we do? Well, here we go. This is our lovely little Draculus the Cunning Mini that we primed. Turned out pretty solid. Nice, smooth finish, which is what I was looking for. Obviously, there's a little bit of spattering and stuff like that that you would have seen in the camera video. Same for our fire giant. I had to struggle a little bit as far as learning, which I'm sure is kind of a usual learning curve for first airbrush users, in nozzle clogging and all that kind of stuff. That was really the big issue that I ran into last night using the airbrush for the first time, as well as just, you know, experimenting with thinning ratios and those kinds of things, which is just going to be an overall learning process. However, I think it went really well. Now, the big question is, what about our lovely little friend here? My battery-powered handheld air compressor for the airbrush that I have. Simple, probably somewhat sacrilegious setup that I'm starting out with. And honestly, way better than I expected. Absolutely not going to get artistic, very technical pieces for that. But if you're just looking to slap on some primer, I think with a little bit of practice and working out your ratios, you could actually have this be an effective setup to just slap some primer on things and work out real well. That said, I will obviously be upgrading because I'm going to want to do some really artistic stuff. It's safe to say that after one use of an airbrush in my hands, I am hooked. It is so smooth and easy. It creates a great product even in my inexperienced hands with a questionable setup. So, yes, many of you will be relieved to know that an air compressor and a master airbrush have been ordered, which I think will also help out. I'll have different needle sizes and get to experiment into all that. But all in all, I am very happy with the way this went, and I think it's going to up our game. It's also going to be certainly a crucial element in getting through the goal of all of these miniatures by the end of the year. Just the priming alone and the speed and the time that took. I also knocked out some terrain dungeon tiles last night with it. And I will say, that little battery guy goes for a while. I was able to do, I think, these two miniatures and the two full core sets of Dungeons and Lasers tiles with lost time and things for having to clean the nozzle and all that kind of stuff on just one charge. Now, I was hoping I'd be able to plug it in and have it just continually charging so it keeps going. That is still to be determined. Because the charging setup I had for it, it did not like, for whatever reason. But I fixed that. It's recharged now. I'm going to see as we move forward kind of how it runs. Whether you can just leave that battery block plugged in, charging, and just have a constant go. Or if you're going to have to completely deplete it and recharge all the time. I know battery, memory stuff, we're not relying on this on a constant setup. I am not even certain how much I'll use it once I get an actual compressor setup, but I'm curious. I'm curious to see how well it does, and it may be a great secondary to have by to knock on a nice general coating while also at the same time using the secondary airbrush for the more details while I'm working, spinning. I don't know. We're going to have to see. This is a whole new process to me. So you're going to be coming with me on figuring out what my flow is going to be like and how that's going to work. But very exciting news. It went well. Improvements will be made. And I think we did all right. Anyways, that's pretty much the update. I'm going to knock out a few more dungeon tiles now that everything else is charged. And I will catch you in our next video. Until then, take care of yourself and be good to one another. This is G from Good Crack Miniatures, signing off.